In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to test lead in your drinking water. Why would you do that? Well, firstly, lead is associated with very serious adverse health effects from learning and behavioural disorders. In fact, they suspect at least a third of children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder have elevated lead levels in their body. We also know it drops IQ and it can result in serious mental health issues, including antisocial behaviour, aggression and violence. And it's not a coincidence that many people in jail who are illiterate have elevated levels of lead levels in their body. It can also affect the reproductive system and increase risk for miscarriages and preeclampsia and cause low birth weight. In men, it can cause serious reproductive issues from low sperm count, erectile dysfunction, and of course low libido. It can also impact the bones because we know lead interferes with vitamin D metabolism and increases risk for osteoporosis. Now that's really serious, especially in postmenopausal women who were exposed to lead early on in life, because during postmenopause, as the bones demineralise, they can re-release the lead that was sequestered in the bones, and this can increase their risk for dementia and also Alzheimer's and other mental health issues like anxiety and depression. It can also affect heart disease, and most people don't realise actually at least 28% of all cardiovascular disease, from stroke, high blood pressure, hemorrhaging and anemia, can actually be due to elevated lead levels in their body. And of course, kidney disease, it can lead to that as well. So they are serious adverse health effects. Why would you suspect lead is in your drinking water supply? Well, as a building biologist, if your house is built prior to 1990, there are three ways in which lead may be in your drinking water supply. The first is in the lead solder. Up to 1989, copper pipe and galvanised pipe used lead solder in the domestic piping under your home. As a building biologist, I would go in the subfloor just to check to see if you have copper or galv pipe. Sometimes another way to check that is to look at the bath. If you have an enamel bath and it's bluey-green stain in the enamel, that indicates copper, which means that lead solder may have been used. The second source is PVC pipe. Now, PVC pipe is more likely to be used in tank water, where the water runs off the roof catchment through the PVC pipe into the tank water. That's a problem because often they use lead stabilizers in polyvinyl chloride pipe. The third source of lead can actually come from your taps. Now, this can be brass and chrome plated taps. This is such a problem that on the 26th of April 2021, the Australian government launched that it will be spending over $2 billion replacing brass taps, because currently brass and chrome plated taps can contain up to 6% lead. That's a problem. They're going to reduce it to 0.25%, but of course, as we know, this always takes time. So now what I want to demonstrate is how to test your drinking water for lead. I'm going to test the drinking water for lead, and when I get the lab results back, I want to make sure it's below the Australian drinking water guideline of 0.01 milligram per litre. In the US, however, it is the standard should be below 0.0015 milligrams per litre, which is 66% lower than what's allowed in Australia. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you've got everything ready to go. The most important, of course, is the chain of custody. This you will get from the lab. And in this example, I use the lead group. They have the sample number here. So I want to make sure with the tube that comes in the kit that with a permanent black marker, I'm going to write the sample number on the tube. I want to write the date. I want to write where it came from, the drinking water. So I'll write kitchen tap. And the one thing I do want to write also is whether it's a first flush or flushed sample, and I'll explain what that means. So with the first flush, that means you're taking a sample before you've used the tap. The tap cannot be used for at least 9 hours to take a first flush. So it's the very first water that comes out of the tap when it hasn't been used for at least 9 hours or more. A flush sample is when it's already been flushed and you're taking it after 30 seconds or after 3 minutes. Now, the reason why you would want to take a sample after 30 seconds is because it's reflecting potentially lead in your domestic pipes. Whereas if you're taking a sample, a flush sample, that's 3 minutes, then you're actually assessing the lead in the mains distribution system as opposed to what's in the pipes. So to go ahead, first thing you're going to do, get on the gloves, which normally come with the kit. Put on your gloves, wash your hands, put on your gloves. And then I always like to write all of the information on the tube first. I'm going to open this up, and this would generally be done in the morning so it hasn't been used, because this is the first flush sample, which is this one here. So first flush, kitchen tap, date, etc., and the sample number. I'm then going to, on the cold water, just open that up like that, and I'm going to fill it up right to the top. I want about 50 mils, like that. Now, when you're doing water samples, it's really important because sometimes lead is used in plastic. So you want to make sure that the lid doesn't contaminate the sample by putting this plastic that's lead-free over the top and then putting the lid on top like that. Making sure, just tip it to the side so no water comes out, because of course in the mail, if the water comes out, that's going to be useless. So that's how I would take a water sample. The next two samples are up to you, but if I want to check what's in the domestic pipes, I would do a flushed sample. So I would run this for at least 30 seconds and time it for 30 seconds. Once it's gone for 30 seconds, I would then take another sample right up to the top. Again, put a plastic over the top, which is provided with the lab, and do that. Then I would run it for another 2.5 minutes, so it's run for 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, I would then take another sample, because this one's going to reflect what's likely to be in the mains distribution system before it gets onto your property. You're then going to double check with your chain of custody that the numbers on your containers reflect the numbers on the chain of custody, whether it's a first flush or flushed sample, the date you took it, your details, etc., and a description as to the fact that it came from the kitchen tap. Remember, you don't want anything above 0.01 milligrams per litre, or preferably this US standard, which is 0.0015 milligrams per litre.